Welcome back, it's me, Lou, and today we are here for another action figure unboxing and review, and today's showcased figure is Star Wars, the Black Series, Asajj Ventress, as she is depicted in Star Wars, the Clone Wars. So here we have Count Dooku's apprentice and faithful follower until she stopped following him, Asajj Ventress. Now, I believe this is more so of a depiction of her. I know it says Clone Wars, but I think it's the cartoon version. But as with other Black Series figures, it's more of a realistic depiction of the character. And we'll go into that a little bit more in a little bit. But first, let's take a look at this and appreciate the lovely package. So this is in the newer style Black Series box where it's not a perfect rectangle. It has this kind of slanted end here. It's like an embankment. And on this spine you have some artwork of Ventress. And then there's a palace. At first I thought this might have been Jabba's palace. I could be wrong though. Maybe it's Zero the Hutt. Maybe. I don't know. That might be his palace. I can't remember. It's been a while. So we have some beautiful illustration work here of Asajj Ventress. And on the back we have a little bio. An assassin trained in the ways of the dark side by Count Dooku. Asajj Ventress yearned to be considered a true Sith, but such status wasn't allowed under the Sith rule of two. Yeah, so the Sith rule of two is that, so Count Dooku serves under Palpatine, who is actually Darth Sidious. So she can't really be, full Sith, because Siths always come in pairs. Go figure, but that's their rule of two. So yeah, we have Ventress here. And let's take her out of the box. Okay, let's remove the top cover. And then it comes with that little insert of all the sorts of stuff. I don't know what it is. Maybe disclaimers, legalese, all other sort of wackiness. So here we have Asajj Ventress. Now, first impressions. I'm torn. I'm torn. I love the character a lot. I'm a big Asajj Ventress fan. I don't know if this is the look I would have given her. Now, I think, just like I said, I think this was more so inspired by how she looked in Star Wars, the Clone Wars, the animated CG cartoon on Cartoon Network. And I have this here with me, the visual guide. So let's take a look and see what it has to say about Ventress. Alright, so here's Ventress. Alright, so if we compare the action figure. Yeah, the action figure is, it looks like it's, yeah, the action figure is based off of her cartoon appearance. Which is understandable because I think this is the look most people are familiar with. But while we're here, let's see what the book has to say about her. Asajj Ventress has been trained in the Force by Dooku, though she's officially neither a Sith nor Dooku's apprentice. Okay, that's interesting. Born on a savage world far from the central systems, Asajj hates the Jedi with an animal-like savagery. She has battled Obi-Wan and Anakin before and dreams of the day she will destroy them. So yeah, this figure is based off of her appearance in the Clone Wars cartoon. Now, I kind of have a problem with that. All right, so the Black Series figures, it's the popular 6-inch premium line of action figures, and without doubt, it's aimed more towards collectors and adults than it is kids. And I think it's cool when they release characters from the cartoon, but it bothers me sometimes when they release a realistic depiction of the character. It makes sense though, because the Black Series is predominantly contained with all, you know, realistic looking figures, especially if you're talking about like the movies or the television shows, because, you know, you'll have like a Luke Skywalker that looks like Mark Hamill, Han Solo that looks like Harrison Ford. But when you start dipping into like the animated features like Clone Wars, there's no realistic depiction of those characters. They're very stylized, and they kind of have an animation, you know, anime style kind of look, depending on how the character was designed. So of course, you know, the series collector wants this figure to flow with the rest of their Black Series, so it only makes sense that she be depicted more realistically. But for me, I kind of like the idea of her just looking how she looks in the cartoon. And you kind of got that with the 3 3/4 figures from like years ago, when they made the line of Clone War action figures based off the cartoon series. So my issue is, I think Hasbro should take the approach that they do with the Marvel Legends. Like Marvel Legends, across the board, they'll offer different variations of the figures. Not only will you get like the Marvel Cinematic Universe versions of like Captain America, so it looks like Chris Evans, or like Spider-Man, so it looks like Tom Holland, but they'll also dip into the comic books, and they'll give you a 6-inch scale comic book looking figure, or even a cartoon looking figure where, you know, its sculpt and its features look more like an actual cartoon. And I think it'd be nice if they integrated that into a Black Series line, but at the same time, I think some of the more serious collectors, you know, would push back on that, which I think is kind of weird, because I think, you know, the more hardcore, I think if you're more hardcore about it, you'd want the figure to be more true to its original depiction. So for me, it bothers me that this is depicting the character more realistically than how she appears in the animation. But, you know, grown-up men want her to look realistic, so she flows with the rest of the figures in their collection. But I kind of disagree with that. I think this figure should first be portrayed as she does in the animation, so this looks like a 6-inch figure of the cartoon character. Then down the road, they could release a variation and, you know, release this one that looks more realistically. But I don't know, I'm getting ahead of myself. All right, so let's talk about this figure. First off, even though I'm not too keen on it being realistic looking, it's a beautiful figure. I'm not sure if this is the look I'd give her, but despite the aesthetic look of it, it's a quality figure. The sculpt's nice. She's not hindered in terms of like having armor pieces, so, you know, her arms and everything kind of like just flows and moves like it should. What's curious though is that even though, you know, if this is based off more so her animated look, most of the time when she appeared in the animation, she actually didn't have this skirt. Due to, like, you know, budget and stuff, it costs more in a cartoon to render like flowing material like capes and stuff like that. So when you watch her in the cartoon, I think very rarely would you see her with this skirt. I think most of the time she'd operate without it, and she'd just be like, I think just like without it, and just be like this. And this I'm also feeling conflicted because, as I've mentioned before, I hate it when my action figures mix cloth goods with, you know, I'd prefer if this was plastic, but I'm conflicted because this material, it's really cool looking. It has this brilliance to it, and this really nice sheen and this reflective quality. So I don't mind it at all. I think this material works well on the figure, and since it's softer, it doesn't hinder the movement. I'm kind of curious if this actually comes off. I'm wondering if it's Velcroed or if it's like sewn on. Yeah, it looks like it may be sewed on. Either way, it's cool. I don't know. I mean, it's like I said, I have such mixed feelings about this figure because I love the character, but I don't. This isn't the look I want to have, but this is the most familiar look. And we could go into that in a little bit, but I mean, there's not a whole lot to talk about in terms of this figure. I mean, if you've handled Black Series figures before, you know what's going to move and what doesn't, and the range of motion and articulation. You know, everything's nice. Paint-wise, the apps are alright. It's articulated well. But I brought some other Ventress figures because I want to show you some different depictions of the character in toy form. The first one we have is this. This is Ventress as she first appeared way back when in 2003 through 2005 in the Cartoon Network original Clone Wars cartoon. Now this wasn't the newer CG one. This one was the 2D one that was designed by Genndy Tartakovsky, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. And the cartoon, the first series, I believe, came out a little bit before Revenge of the Sith. Because I remember the big deal with that was where it ends off is where Revenge of the Sith picks up. So, and this was Ventress's original look in the cartoon. She's almost a little bit more alien looking. No pupils in the eyes. Very minimal makeup. Her color scheme is very much more monochromatic. This pretty much is black and white and some gray. But she still has her trademark twin sabers. She has the bandage wraps around her arm. And she still has the skirt. And let's look at the bio. And here we have a character study of Ventress. So this is how she looked in the original Tartakovsky cartoon. Really slender figure. And if you look, you know, there's a definite color. I prefer the darker muted color scheme as opposed to this one. You know, when I think Sith, I think dark, I think underworld, I think in the shadows. And this is kind of like, this figure here, this costume is too bright for me. It's kind of like Ventress going to the ball. But this one screams like Sith assassin to me. You know, a follower of the dark side. So we have this. Let's examine the figure a little bit closely. Some comparison. I don't know. I think lately I'm just hard to please or something. I don't know. But I mean, I love this figure, but I get it and then I don't get it. This is a look most people are going to be familiar with. But, you know, for me being around and being into the character before she appeared as she does with her modern look, you know, this has been exposed to different, you know, looks of her. And here's another one. Bam. This is Star Wars, Clone Wars, and this is a 3 3/4 figure of Asajj Ventress. Now this one's interesting because we just read a second ago that she's not considered a Sith apprentice because it breaks the rule of 2. But over here she's labeled as Sith apprentice. Go figure. All right. So this toy line came out. This was a weird toy line because I'm not sure if this is something that should be considered canon. I do believe this came out around the same time as the Tartakovsky cartoon on Cartoon Network. So at the same time, you had a realistic depiction of the Clone Wars, and at the same time, you had an animated look of the Clone Wars. And then it even has, you know, has Dirge, who is depicted in the original Clone Wars animated series, but at the same time they made a realistic looking figure of him, which I think was cool. Now this is what I'm talking about. This is what I think is cool. So this is Hasbro at the time giving you 2 different depictions of the character. They're giving you a realistic version, and then they're giving you this animated one at the same time. So this one's true to form because there was a cartoon that looked like this. Now, for this figure, there wasn't a cartoon, there wasn't a movie. There might have been some Dark Horse comics, and I'm not sure to what extent maybe even video games. But this is a more realistic portrayal of Ventress. But it's cool that they gave you both options. Now this figure is weird because it's an amalgamation of something that's realistic, but it never existed in realistic form. But the design's based off an animated style. You know, this is her cartoon outfit, but they portrayed her realistically. You know, for me, I want her in her purest form, so I'd want this to actually reflect how she looked like in the cartoon. I don't want this looking realistic, but it's like I said, I get it. Collectors want this to flow in their collection, and you know, they want this to like blend in well with the movie figures and whatnot. But I think that's why I'm lucky, you know, because for collecting as long as I am, and for the stuff I have in my possession, and my brother's collection of Star Wars toys also, you know, I do have a realistic depiction of the figure and the character. And this one's really unique because this doesn't look like this at all. I mean, of course she's bald, but you know, this one's different than this one also, because this figure, she has pupils and she has these markings on her head, which this one doesn't have. But their costumes are kind of similar. But this one has a cape. This one has no cape. This one has a nice, elegant dress or skirt. This one has a raggedy one. She's covered a little bit in a more cleaner, refined, science fiction looking outfit. This one's like wearing rags. So it's just interesting how, you know, it's the same character but it's depicted in two completely different styles. And to make things even more complicated, you look at the illustration artwork versus the figure, and either the figure's missing a paint application or this is colored wrong, because in the illustration she has this dark gray running down the middle of her torso, whereas on here she doesn't have it. And then this belt buckle here doesn't match that one. So it's all over the place. So poor Ventress, you know, she's... I don't know. But... Let's read this bio. So, it's... Alright, according to the realistic depiction of Ventress in 2003, it says here that she's a ruthless and cunning military mastermind of the Confederacy. Asajj Ventress is instrumental in fighting the Jedi during the Clone Wars. Count Dooku discovered the mysterious Asajj Ventress on a war-torn planet shortly after the Battle of Geonosis. Though she had never trained as a Jedi, Ventress demonstrates a corrupt mastery of the Force. Under the tutelage of Count Dooku, she has embraced the dark side, using her twin-curved lightsabers to cut down all those who would oppose her. Often accompanied by the bounty hunter Dirge, Ventress is more than a match for the Republic's greatest Jedi. Cool. Now this is something, it touched on something that bothers me to this day, is that there's been an exclusion of the Dirge character, and it's this dude here. So around this time, Dirge was kind of like the new heavy badass bounty hunter looking guy that everyone was supposed to get a hard on over, and he was in the cartoon and he was pretty cool. But then when they kind of resetted the cartoon for the not the 2D one, so he was introduced into 2D cartoons, and I believe even in the Dark Horse comics. But then years later, when they did the new cartoon on Cartoon Network, the one that Filoni was involved in, there was, you know, Dirge all of a sudden didn't exist anymore. It's like he was wiped from canon or something. I could be wrong. I have to look it up, probably in a Star Wars encyclopedia. I'll probably fill in the blanks. But Dirge is a character I kind of wish they'd revisit. I think visually he's a really cool looking Star Wars character. But I am running off a major tangent here because we're supposed to be talking about Ventress. So yeah, I like Ventress a lot. She's a cool character. You know, this is I don't know. Despite my conflicted feelings about the looks of this character, this is a great figure. It's a great addition to the Star Wars Black Series. It adds another Sith character to your ranks. Oh, I got this too. Speaking of realistic depictions of Ventress, for me, this is one of the more iconic images of the character. So this was a statue done by Gentle Giant years ago. And this is when Ventress... It looks like it's based more so off this look right here. So this is a realistic depiction of this Ventress right here. You know, she has the longer collar around her neck. She kind of has that similar bodysuit. Even though the colors are different, she has the buckle and the belt. And it's just interesting because here she is, posing very provocatively, rubbing up against, Count Dooku. And, I don't think their relationship was anything like that. But this, I think, is a very cool, depiction of the character if she existed realistically. I don't know. I always had problems with this version of the character in the cartoon. I didn't like all the makeup on her face. It just looks weird. But yeah. So what do we... We're here for an action figure review. I'm like not even talking about the figure. The figure's cool. I mean, her dress is backless, so when she's slow dancing, you like take her hand and rub it on her back when you pull her close to you. She covered her arm in bandages, and she has bandages around her abdomen, like, like in Japanese wrestling, like especially the old school Japanese wrestler guys, when they get their ribs hurt, and they always have to bandage up so they can really sell their injury and you know that they're hurt. I don't know why she has bandages. Under her legs, she has more bandages. So she's practically a mummy. She has bandages around her legs. I love this figure and I hate this figure. The colors, I never liked the purple color scheme on her. It looks weird. But it's a great figure. I'm glad I bought it. There's some paint smudges on mine, so it wasn't as clean as it could have been. But otherwise, it's nice. I'm like the worst person at reviewing action figures because I don't even talk about the figures. I'm sorry. So yeah, this is Ventress. She's cool. When you see her, pick her up. You could, her and Ahsoka go on adventures together. I'd kind of like to think that when she broke away from being a bad guy, and if I remember correctly, I think in the cartoon, she stopped working for Count Dooku. And, just like in the rest of the Star Wars universe, you either have three occupations. You either work for the Rebels, you work for the Empire, or you're a bounty hunter. And I think for a while she became a bounty hunter. But I think in the back of my head, I was kind of hoping that, after Ahsoka left the Jedi Order, I was kind of hoping that maybe they'd explore something where the two of them would kind of pair up and go on buddy-buddy adventures together. Because here she is. She's kind of like this bitter virtuosa. And, Ahsoka at the time, she kind of loses sight of the Order, and she's kind of going on her own. And I thought it'd be kind of cool that, that dichotomy of their personalities and who they are and what they represent would allow them to like have a really dynamic relationship. And I think they could have redone the whole Anakin and Obi-Wan story again, but this time with two female leads. And, you can explore that with Ventress, who's a little bit more experienced and older, and you have Ahsoka, who's younger, and they just go on buddy missions together. But I don't write Star Wars fiction, and if I did, that's what I'd write. I think it'd be pretty cool. So yeah, this is Ventress. I love you, Ventress. So, thanks again for checking out this video. I'd like to call this an action figure review, but it's just more so 20 minutes of me rambling and ranting about what I think's wrong with Star Wars. I love Star Wars, don't get me wrong. I'm not one of those crazy bitter people. But this figure, oh god, I just don't like this purple. It's weird. Everything is weird to me. So, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for stopping by.